everybody, how's it going? Welcome to SMG Viewers Comments, episode number 227. This is my weekly show where I try and answer your comments and questions about recording to the absolute best of my ability in order to help you, the viewer, out. So if you got a cool comment or a cool question, please leave something below. If I think it'll help other viewers out as well, I will do my absolute best to put it on the show. That being said, let's get right to it.
Glenn, my band is going to record our EP next weekend. What can we do to make our engineer's job a breeze? Any tips would help out.
First and foremost, come prepared. If you need a little bit more elaborate explanation for that, please check out my two videos, How to Get Your Band Ready for the Studio, Part 1 and Part 2. There are 8 very common sense rules for coming into the studio and making not only your engineer's job easy, but your job as a musician easy as well. That's how this whole channel started, was with those 2 videos. So if you haven't seen that yet, please check it out. They're definitely in my top videos, or check out the playlist, the best of Glenn's rants. They're definitely easy to find. And again, all you got to do is search How to Get Your Band Ready for the Studio. Good luck, dude.
I recently bought a new old stock Behringer SX4882. It has the ZX preamps. I'm going to try this through it. Do you send direct outputs or stereo out to the DAW? Thanks.
Hey, Scott, this is a question I've answered numerous times over numerous videos, and all you got to do is click a playlist for one of my tutorial lists, that kind of thing, how to record heavy guitar, and I do explain it. But just in case a few more guys are still a little bit confused with that, all I do with the cheap Behringer mixer for the preamps and that kind of thing, all I do is just pan everything to one side and then take that mono output from that side into my DAW. That's it. Don't overthink it. Don't worry about it. If it sounds good, it is good. Stop fucking around and get to work.
I just officially formed my audio services company, yay! And am counting on potential client to mix their EP. Question, should I download a generic recording studio contract from the internet law site or hire a lawyer to draw one up? Do you put your specific terms and conditions on the contract, e.g. no finished product will be released until it's paid for you, your hourly work, not by mixing flat rate, etc.? Also, how do your clients usually pay you? Cash, check, PayPal?
Okay, first and foremost, if you're just starting out, just remember, you're not working with a major label or major label budgets or anything like that. So I'm not really sure if you should be going to grab a lawyer at this point, because it's going to probably cost you more money than you are ever going to fucking make. You can probably find a generic contract agreement online. That should be absolutely no big deal to figure out. Again, this is just a case of don't overthink it. In my own case, it's generally been a handshake agreement with musicians, and more often than not, that's been enough. It's just basically, look, don't make my life difficult, and I'm going to make this as easy as possible for you as well. It's just based on a system of mutual respect. Unfortunately, it doesn't always go as planned. I haven't had too many contract disputes over 20 years, but hey, your neighborhood might be different. Your musicians might be total assholes. Who knows? Point being is, yeah, it doesn't hurt to protect your ass. The other thing is you can ask for half up front and then half due upon payment, as long as the band is clear that they won't get anything until they pay in full. Just make sure they know that, make sure they shake on it, even get it on video with them agreeing to it, anything to just kind of, give you some kind of a guarantee that they are not going to fuck with you once the project is complete. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is you are dealing with musicians, so don't accept Target gift cards as a means of payment. Cash usually works well, and if they're gonna pay you by PayPal, you better make damn sure they're gonna pay your PayPal fees as well, because it's their problem, not yours.
Any advice for miking the bottom of a snare? I use a CO2 condenser, but I kind of just point it directly at the underside of the snare. Any nuance on how I'm positioning the mic that I should consider? Thanks.
Hey Taylor, great question. I don't worry about it too much generally. A small diaphragm condenser underneath the snare can work wonders. Maybe back it off a little bit and try playing with it and see what happens. The key to anything in miking drums is experimentation and find what works the best for your workflow. I've worked with a 57 under the snare, small diaphragm condenser, usually a Lewitt or an Octava, something like that. I think it was Tui Madsen. He likes a 421 under his snare. You can try that. I was over at Cameron Webb's about a year ago, and he likes a bottom snare mic, but he likes to back it off by about 3 feet so he doesn't run into phase issues. And that gets him a much wider pickup area, so he gets much more of the drum. That being said, keep in mind though, the bottom snare mic is not going to be your main pickup area of the snare drum. That's still going to be the top and the overheads and the room and that kind of thing. You're just using the bottom snare mic kind of just to fill things in and maybe add a little bit of brightness and a little bit of that sizzle coming off the bottom head with the snare wires, that kind of thing. So it's much more of an effect rather than the whole picture of the drum. All right, everybody, this episode is sponsored by me. This is the SMG Cockblocker noise gate. It is the finest noise gate I've ever used. We put it up against the ISP Decimator G-string and held its own. We put it up against the Boss NS2. It definitely sounded a lot cleaner than the NS2. You can check those videos. I've got some links in the description below for all that good stuff. Now, we've doubled our production run and we are still well over 60% sold out on these things. They're gonna be available probably till just before Christmas. The first ones are just going through powder coat and all that good stuff. They should be headed to paint this week. So those of you guys who have bought some earlier this fall, they're going to be coming to you real soon. As soon as I know anything, I will be sure to update you. But for those of you guys who have not got in on the pre-order, it's not going to last forever. It's definitely the most badass noise gate I've ever used, and it's probably the most badass noise gate you're ever going to use. Besides, it says cock on it. Make sure you get in on the pre-order today. Now back to the show. And now it's time for
the butthurt of the week. These reviews of yours are really annoying. It's not really a review at all. It's just you shitting on brands you don't like. The only thing you've ever really said anything good about is some software shit. Suck a dick, fricker.
Oh, we found the Black Star user. Glad you liked it, buddy. Just for the record, the Fearless Gear Reviews thing is not just about shitting on bad gear. It's trying to find hidden gems, anything that I can review just outside the scope of the company or corporate sponsorship, that thing. It's my independent review series. Now, I've said some very complimentary things to other things I've given Fearless Gear Reviews, most notably the Line 6 Spider 5 Mark II firmware. That was a massive improvement over the original, and suddenly a small, shitty practice amp became somewhat bearable. Don't use it on a record, but you know, if you're practicing at home, there's no problem with that whatsoever. So my response to the initial comment there is, hey, you know what? I'm sorry you got hurt that I didn't like what you bought. That's fine, that happens. I understand. A lot of people are just looking to have their purchases validated when they go onto YouTube. They want to hear from like-minded people who are going to say nice things about the things they bought. I don't do that on this show. However, you might want to try watching more than one fucking episode.
What do you think about gigging these? I'm thinking of getting one because the smaller size would be easier than lugging around a bigger amp.
Of course, you're talking about the Joyo Zombie. Now, interesting story here. You guys know Brandon Wright. He's been on the show a million times. He did the Access Banana the Cloth video there a couple of years ago where we were shooting out the Heil PR35 mic against other handhelds. Brandon's a really talented dude and he's a lot of fun to work with, but I want to give him the Joyo Zombie just because he's been such a huge help on the show. And he brought it to a gig with his Marshall 4x12 and the sound guy laughed at him when he rolled that fucker onto the stage with this massive 4x12 and this tiny little amp on top. And I'll tell you, as soon as Brandon cranked that fucker up, the guy stopped laughing. He was just blown away by how loud it was and the sound it was putting out. Yeah, you know what? Go for it. The only problem with the Zombie is you can't really do foot switching. So unless you figure a way around that, or you just want to play all distortion all the time, or just roll your volume knob on your amp or on your guitar down quite a bit, you are going to be limited by that. But believe me, that fucker roars live on stage. It's definitely worth the very small investment that it is.
You always talk about how bad sanitizing a performance is, and I totally agree. But in lieu of being imperfect humans, should we keep trying to get that perfect performance? Or is good enough with some mistakes okay?
Well, here's the thing. Just because we have the tools available to, correct things doesn't necessarily mean we should. I think Rick Beato has illustrated that a while back where he time-aligned John Bonham and it just completely ruined the song. Again, I go back to my video, The Fans Deserve Better. What would happen if we auto-tuned Freddie Mercury on Bohemian Rhapsody? That song would have fucking sucked! Just because we could do it doesn't mean we should be doing it. Dude, I always approach it like this. If I have to move something, it's because there's no other way to do it. It's a method of last resort. That's how it should be, is use these tools, but use them as a method of last resort, not the first fucking thing. Oh, I'm just gonna align everything, I'm gonna pitch correct everything, and then everything sounds correct, everything sounds perfect, and it puts the audience to sleep. But what do I know? I only grew up in the 80s, and we know how bad the records were in the 80s, like Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, Defenders of the Faith, Scream for Vengeance, Power Slave, British Steel. Yeah, they were just awful.
I am a drummer, and I find this kind of talk very, very disturbing. A simple electrocution collar wired to the click works just fine.
Now, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard a drummer say.
Back from the dead, how about the ADA preamps from the late 80s to 90s, which were super popular, even Nuno used them, but now no one talks about them.
Dude, I would love to get my hands on an ADA preamp. and demo it here on the show. I think that would be super fucking cool. I'm going to put my Hollywood address in the link in the description below. If you guys want to see something demoed on the show, or somebody wants to loan me one for about 6 to 8 weeks so I can demo it, I think that'd be super fucking awesome. Of course, I would be more than happy to return ship it. Just message me ahead of time instead of just, sending to me and like, oh, by the way, and then I have 7 of them show up. So if you have one, you want to see it on the show, I would love to fucking demo it. Please PM me, email me, go through my spectremedia.ca website and fill out a form there and get in touch with me because I would love to demo one of those fuckers on this show.
One of the most essential tutorial videos on the internet. Bravo! Hi-hats have been making my life a misery for years. What do you think of using bits of foam to shield the snare mic from the hi-hats? Are those products just snake oil? Thanks. Oh, and stop torturing us with how great the Earthworks mics are, though. That's a dick move for sure. Aren't they, like, really, really expensive?
Okay, a lot to digest in that. You're referencing the latest How to Record Heavy Drums video I did with Bruno Valverde from the band Angra. Bruno is just a monster drummer, and he was a total champ here in the studio, and it was a lot of fun to work with him. What I did was showed off the varying ways you can move a microphone around to minimize bleed using an Earthworks kick mic of all things, and it really did work like a champ. This is the SR25. This is one of the overheads. As for the, hey, you're a bastard who likes Earthworks mics, guilty as charged. Yeah, these things are incredible. They're probably my absolute favorite drum mics ever. No, they're not cheap, but they're definitely worth the money. I would highly recommend saving your pennies for a set of these, or go to Sweetwater and see what kind of a payment plan they've got available, and chances are you could get your hands on a set of these as well. I even gave a set of them away last year for Sucks 2018. So I'm not a complete bastard there. As for the foam treatment thing, Cameron Webb, I go back to him because we were doing some drum stuff there about a year ago. He had one of these weird foam wedge things over his 57 on the snare. I'm like, does it help? And he's like, just a tiny bit, but every little bit counts. And I would agree with that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna order up a couple of those different 57 foam solution things and see if they make any difference whatsoever. And I'm gonna try them on a couple different snare mics as well. In the meantime though, play with your mic position, play with the drummer's technique, and see what you can come up with.
What does key send/return on my compressor plug into?
Please see my how to use a compressor video for a detailed explanation. But basically, a key on a compressor is basically using a different signal to activate the compressor instead of your source signal. So say you've got a bass guitar and you're compressing it, that's fine. But if you can, what you can do is send a kick drum to the key send, and that will activate the compressor every time a kick drum plays. So what that means is every time the kick drum plays, it will turn down your bass guitar, that sort of thing. I've also got an Audio Basics episode on sidechain compression. Highly, highly recommend checking that one out because it goes into far more detail than I can do right here. Good luck to you, man. I understand it can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but believe me, we all go through it and we all learn it eventually.
Hey Glenn, I think I can see a universal audio interface in the background. Have you made any videos about that? Thanks and fuck you.
No, I have not, but I'm using the Universal Audio Apollo X16. We've got 2 of them right here in the back. And yeah, they're pretty cool. And so far, really enjoying the plugins. I'm actually using the Universal Audio Distressor plugin on the way in right now. Now, hopefully Empirical Labs will send us a real distressor at some point because that is still probably my absolute favorite compressor. But a couple of you guys were actually complaining about my overhead mic here that I use to do my monologue, that it's a little too sibilant and it's a little too much room sound. And what I've been using lately are those 2 compressors down there, an 1176 and an LA2A in series. And they do offer an awful lot of compression, but I do think they bring in a lot of the room sound, and they're a little more sibilant than the distressor is. So there is that. I'm not going through a $10,000 tube mic right now. I'm going through a Lewitt overhead mic, and it just happens to work really fucking well. So far, I really do enjoy the UAD plugins. I think they're great. The one thing I'm really missing about the universal interfaces, though, is the loopback function that you would find on the RME stuff. I use that for live streaming all the time, and it is sorely, sorely missed on the Universal stuff. Hopefully Universal can figure out a way how to make that happen. I think that'd be awesome.
Glenn, I really need your opinion on this. My band needs a drummer. After dealing with so many flaky drummers, we have decided to release a single to try and find a drummer that is serious about making music as we are. I only know the beginning basics of mixing, and there are a lot of things I do not know and the equipment I do not have. Should I just do the best I can on this song and post on social media so we go to a studio and record it? Also, I had a drummer on Fiverr write and mix the drums for the song. Our main goal right now is to find a drummer and finish writing 6 of our songs for a setlist so we can start playing shows. Thanks from Mississippi.
Well, in your case, I'd probably recommend Toontrack's Easy Mix. That's a good way to start. and maybe Easy Drummer, something like that, if you're just starting to get your feet wet with this sort of thing. I've got no problem with it being used for songwriting or for beginner stuff, any of that. It's just it shouldn't be winding up on major releases, or the learning shouldn't stop once you figure out how to do those drums. It's like learning to record acoustic drums. That should definitely be a goal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you doing it at home and whatnot. You definitely don't have to go to a studio to do a demo if you're just looking for talent. Hopefully the songwriting shines through and you will attract attention that way. I really hope it works out well for you, dude.
Glenn, right now in the USA, most Lowe's and Home Depots are selling bags with a slightly goofy size 47 by 15 by 3 Roxul Safe and Sound for $60 for 12 sheets. Very hard to beat that acoustic performance per dollar.
Dude, you know what? That's a fantastic advice. I used Roxul Safe and Sound all over Spectre. We used that in our walls. And but when it came to doing the corner traps, I did use compressed stuff. That seemed to work a little bit better. The rigid fiberglass, that sort of thing. When it came to actually doing my walls, yeah, we used those huge bats of Roxul Safe and Sound. We used them on the walls, the ceiling, all over the fucking place. Definitely serious bang for the buck for those of you guys who are out there and want to build something and maybe soundproof the room up a little bit. Definitely try grabbing some of that. Even cloth covering that stuff and putting it in the corners can go a very long way into helping your room acoustics. Once again, for verification on all that, check out the John Sayers Studio Design Forum. It's what helped me build my place back in Windsor.
Completely out of context question, Glenn, but what's wrong with your left eye?
Oh man, I've been getting a lot of questions about that since I've been kind of doing more vlog style stuff and the camera's a little bit closer to me. Basically, in case anybody didn't notice, this is what's called a port wine stain on the side of my face. It's a birthmark. I've had it since day one. And it is kind of medically unique in the fact that it actually runs onto the surface of my eye. It's completely painless, and it hasn't affected my vision in any way. This is actually my better eye out of the two. This one's I can see a little bit clearer out of. So yeah, it really has no bearing on my quality of life whatsoever. But thanks for asking. I do appreciate that. So just to reiterate, yeah, there's nothing wrong with my vision. There's nothing wrong with my eye. It's just something I was born with, and I've had to go through life with. Made me a bit of a target in high school, I'll tell you that, but it sure lets you know who your friends are in a real hurry.
Let me just say this as a live engineer and someone whose side gig for years, because I love music that much, was nightclubs and concert venues. When we have a band that shows up and does stupid shit like jumping over the drums, smashing their equipment, or other destructive gimmicks to get attention, it's usually because they suck at playing. Emulating The Who only works when you play and write something as awesome as The Who. There are some exceptions where we get great musicianship and the genre works for them, see the punk band Endangered Feces, but for the most part, when it's played out, it doesn't work and will only really piss off the venue as they have to clean up after your BS. Also, if you manage to damage the engineer's equipment, you'll probably get your wig split for being a moron.
So there you go, from a live sound engineer's perspective. If you're thinking on smashing your instruments to get some attention on stage, he has a better idea. Try writing some better songs! All right, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Smash that subscribe button, punch that notification bell, because all that YouTube bullshit does help me out. In the meantime, if you have not got an SMG Cockblocker noise gate, follow the link in the description below and get in on the pre-order, because this is not gonna last forever. And once again, to everybody who bought one so far, thank you so much. I will keep you posted, and I will send out images as soon as I get them. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and Facebook and all that other social media jazz. And until next time, let's make some great music together. Take it easy.